Hi, my name is Duane Morrisseau-Beck. I'm the Senior Sixties Scoop Advisor for the Métis National Council. I'm a survivor, and I'm from Crane River, Manitoba, and I live in Ottawa, Ontario. I'm here this afternoon with Elder Norman Fleury. He's a Michif Language Educator at the University of Saskatchewan, and I'm going to be speaking with him a little bit about some of the history behind the Sixties Scoop and some of the experiences that we as a nation have experienced. So I'm very happy to have you here today, Norman.
Thank you. Merci.
Just over the last couple months, in March and April of this year, Norman, the Métis National Council met with survivors across the Métis homeland. And the premise of those discussions was to discuss and hear stories from Métis survivors of their experiences of the Sixties Scoop. Part of the work and the discussions that we had, we heard stories from Métis Nation survivors about the atrocities and the hardships that they experienced over the duration of their lives as they were stolen from their families and from the Métis Nation. Part of the experience of coming back home and learning about your culture is trying to figure out what really happened and how that manifested in our communities. So I wanted to ask a question about that. I wanted to learn a little bit more about how the Sixties Scoop in our community, how did that affect our people? And because when we think about our own experiences, we as a people, the Michif people, are collective people. So what happens to us, one person, happens to us all. That's my belief. And so part of the learning and trying to understand from our nation's perspective is trying to figure out how that affected our people and learning a little bit more about the history of that in our communities. I know that you've been involved a little bit in that. So could you tell us a little bit about that from your perspective?
Well, when you talk about apprehension of children during the time of when I was a child growing up, it seems like in those days we had no voice. We had no power in the community because that colonization process was still there, and we felt we were powerless. And not like today. Today we have our own political government, our nation that's strong, negotiating with the present day government, with strong negotiations and partnership, signing MOUs. I know that a lot of work has been done through the national government, MNC, and I participated as an elder at the legislative grounds in Parliament, and I've been involved in the community activities. I've been a past board of director with the Manitoba Métis Federation in the early 80s. And while I was there, we had Janet Gertson, who was our vice president of the Southwest region, and we participated with a Judge Kimmelman to stop the process of taking children and moving them into the States. So that's when we started to have power, was around 1967. I was when we formed our own government. We reclaimed our government again. As we're sitting here today, we're sitting on the land and the homeland of our ancestors where Louis Riel fought the last battle with Gabriel Dumont and all our Métis war veterans and our peacetime mothers and grandmothers. They had their own, they were in charge of their own destinies in those days. And then we went underground for 100 years. And now, since 51 years in Manitoba, and in Alberta in the early late 20s, in Saskatchewan in the 30s, our people started to reorganize as a people. And we started looking at those kind of concerns, those issues. And in those days, we did not have that happen to us because we were in full charge and control of our own destiny. We were structured as extended families. I remember as a child when people lost their mothers and fathers, the grandparents stepped in, or the godparents, that was their responsibility. There was no such thing as child and family services until people started to get involved in social services, and they started to call that welfare. And we gave, it seems, because we weren't able to control anything, we weren't part of we didn't have no reeves, we didn't have municipal councils, we didn't have our town councils. The chief and council were run by Indian Affairs and the Indian agents. So we had no control over our destinies. But today I'm very proud to say, as we sit here, that we are doing things together as a nation to not ever allow that happen again, because those behaviors were beyond our choices. And today we've got the reins, and that's a lot better than sitting in a vehicle or a cart. You have no horses, you have no reins. So we're still here together. So I'm saying we have a better chance. But on the other hand, those people that I know that were part of that 60 Scoop movement, they were stolen from their homes. There was no such thing as rehabilitation. They just took those children away from their homes, and they never allowed the parents to get involved with the situation. They didn't analyze the situation. They didn't have any kind of rehabilitation programs. They didn't have any kind of consultation programs in the community. Today we have elders that are involved, that are consulting to the national government and to the provincial government. Because I have my president, Glenn McCollum, of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, when we go around doing meetings with the mayor of Saskatoon and other organization, he said to me, Norman, our Métis elders are the answers, have the answers to our problems that we're having. We have to rely on them, same as we did years ago when we had our own communities. The elders played a big, big, important role in the communities. So I guess it's very nice that to sit with you as one of those leaders, one of those people that were the victims, and now you're helping those other people that need that same help, and we're doing these community gatherings, engagements, to bring us together so we can come and find our own answers as a people. We don't rely on other agencies and other groups. We rely on our own powers as a people, as people that have a strong nation with culture, language, music, stories, mythologies, legends. We got it all. And with all that, we are the main resource to those people that are coming home or they're not home yet, and we can welcome them, because otherwise the agencies that took them away could not welcome them. How could they? They had nothing to offer them in the first place.
Right. So part of the coming home strategy that the Métis Nation is embarking on with the 60 Scoop is allowing our nation to look after our own people, to develop the supports and the programs to reintegrate and reintroduce survivors back to their home. I know that at the sessions, when we were at the sessions over the last couple, in March and April of this year, survivors were talking about the need to get their language back and to know their culture. And so these aspirations of the Métis Nation and how they're moving forward on this reconciliation and reconciling these wrongs to these people, I think what you've really shared is really important for our survivors to hear. I came home in 1997, and one of the things that I've always wanted to hear was welcome home. And I think that our elders and our leaders have a major play in those processes, as the welcome home means that you're accepted, that you have finally made it to where you belong, where you started, that circle, right? So I'm very grateful for what you've shared. I'm grateful to hear about the leadership. I know that the minister responsible for human resources, Minister David Chartrand, who's the lead for Sixties Scoop, has been working with all the leaders to advance this reconciliation and the need for healing and supports and bringing our people home. And the consultations was a very good start to build that understanding and that awareness of those needs. As I've come through and been in the Métis Nation for a number of years, I remember meeting you very, very long time ago. I was just a young pup. And I remember your language and how you spoke all the time. And I always looked up to you, and I continue to look up to you because of your language and your strength around that, and how you are so giving of that language. And these are the types of experiences that I pray for all survivors to have, that they have that experience, that opportunity to not be shy, to try to say Tanshe Kia, and to be okay with that and take that first step. So I believe that elders are very key in this process, and I believe that elders are very key, and the entire Métis Nation is key to welcoming our survivors home. So I think for me, the experiences that I've experienced and the work that we're trying to do is to bring those people home. It's what we need to do. It's the right thing to do. And having those services and those programs available for survivors is going to be one of the major components once we bring them home, and making sure that we have that place for them, bring them back into the circle, bring them back into the community. We talk about the interference of the state in child welfare. I remember hearing from several academics around the kinship process, the way that our nation was and how we looked after our children. I mean, if I was running around and we lived in a Métis community, you would be watching out for me. So would somebody else. Someone would be my uncle, my auntie. There would always be these extended families looking after us, right? So that's kind of the things that I look at when we try to bring the people back together, is to bring them back and help them experience that kinship, that love, those feelings of belonging, because that's something that most of our survivors do not have, that feeling. So I want to thank you for that. You mean the world to me in allowing me to be that child and be able to sort of to learn that. And I really appreciate that.
That's very good. What you're saying is so healthy. And when we're coming back talking about, when I talk to the old people, they always say things like, Kayashmana, long ago. Anoshegwapakan, it's different today. So what we're saying is there's Kayash over here and there's Anosh, today and long ago, and we're trying to bring them together to have a balance and connect. So when we started off with our political government as Métis people, as a nation, we had to take an inventory of what we had in our communities for resources and who would be the better leaders, same as today. So we have good leaders. I've worked with David Chartrand, the president of the Manitoba Métis Federation, Clément Chartier, the president of MNC, And sometimes people are not satisfied. It seems like they're not ready, but sometimes they're overly critical about things. So I've been involved for 51 years, and I'm still here with the Métis Nation. So if you don't have patience, if you don't have a good grounding and understanding, and you're not overly analytical negatively, you got to still be positive. Even with some of those things that weren't in our favor, we still have to work with that and bring them together, same as we're bringing the survivors home. We have to bring them home to something positive, something that we can give them. So we're taking and what we're doing is we're making a structure, and we're structuring something as part of that healing process, that empowerment process. It's also a language inclusion, it's a cultural inclusion. Because people like myself and others that had that most great time with their mushrooms and kokums, and that family unit connection with that extended family, we were very, very fortunate that when I grew up, we still had our language and our history and our stories, all positive because of our grandparents. Those were our teachings. So we want them to be able to teach that